Good afternoon, folks. This is meteorologist Seth Bohnhoff here, providing a little bit of a severe weather update as we've had kind of some off and on storms throughout the afternoon, and we do just have one current severe thunderstorm warning, but it's one that we kind of need to hone in on here just a little bit, as it appears there is probably some pretty decent sized hail in there right now. Let's go ahead and throw up that warning, and we will be able to see what exactly it's issued for. I think at one point saw hail the size of close to ping pong balls, so that is something to watch out for. This is out in the Douglas County area, kind of northern Coles County, and heading on into Edgar County as well. It's moving awfully slowly, so you've got some time to prepare out ahead of this one if you are in parts of western Edgar County. But the problem is if you are right underneath it, then you're getting plenty of rain right now, which isn't a horrible thing. We need some rain, especially down this direction of all places, but you don't want to have that flash flooding risk, which is what we've been dealing with here quite a bit lately. So I'm going to throw on our little hail size meter here that kind of gives us a guess as to how big that hail is. It doesn't look as big as it once was. We're probably talking about maybe close to quarter size, if not probably a little less than that. There's one little spot there. Yeah, so that 1 inch is equivalent to quarter size hail. So that moved through Arcola about, I would say, 15 or so minutes ago. And we, again, had that hail the size of about 1.5 inches, so getting close to that ping pong ball size. And as we go throughout the afternoon, it's going to be how it continues to be, because we have got some pretty high heat and humidity that are going to continue to fuel this kind of morning round of storms that we have right now. So just again, taking a look at the whole picture right now, we're watching just kind of this cluster of storms really just explode, taking advantage of all sorts of heat and humidity in the southern half of the area, who avoided rain much of the day today. So you're going to be in line for maybe some more thunderstorm development as we continue on through the afternoon. Right now, that is our only warning for the moment. I'm going to go ahead and put things full screen for just a moment while I switch around a couple of monitors here, so it makes it a little easier for me to see what's going on. But just recently had a severe thunderstorm watch issued across a good portion of the area. And it's kind of, it's a little bit of an interesting one, because they have a watch issued for some storms this afternoon, while also considering there could be some development later on into the day. So we'll go ahead and pull up that watch here real quick so you can see, and I'll put myself back on now that it looks like I've got things situated back up here. So here's your severe thunderstorm watch. Any of these counties highlighted in pink goes until about 7 p.m. is what we're watching for. But there could be maybe some storm development even past that time frame. So we'll just kind of watch and see how that goes. But basically, the stage is set for some more storm activity to get going later on into the afternoon. Let's pull up some sky cams and see what we can find. I think the closest one we have is the Charleston camera. And again, I'll bring this full screen because I think the color looks a little better when you can see the entire thing there from your screen. So you can see kind of that leading edge there, the kind of definition in the clouds of that storm moving to the north of Coles County right now as it moves out closer to Edgar County. We're going to go ahead and point this thing a little bit more to the east to kind of see what's going on. Probably not getting a terrific view here of anything other than structure. Can't really see anything going on within the storm because we don't have any cameras out there right where that storm is, but we can get a pretty good look at it here from the Charleston camera from a distance. This is likely to, I would say, probably stay away from the Mattoon and Charleston area just because it looks like it's got more eastern movement. But that doesn't mean that you cannot get a little bit of rain to go along with it, some pretty heavy rain at times as well. What I'm also going to do is switch things over to a little bit of a different radar that we have on our other monitor over here. And what I'm going to do with this is just kind of illustrate what we're seeing, these storms, where we're seeing them kind of develop. And what I'll do, I'll put myself back on here so I can kind of point things out a little better. So with this particular radar, we're able to see a pretty neat feature. The outflow boundary from these storms is just a very thin line I'm trying to trace here with my finger. That's basically just some winds, some cool air that are pushing out from the storm. And what that's doing is it's pushing up a bunch of warm, humid air in front of it, and it is firing up storms like the one we have right over Douglas and Coles County right now, because about 45 minutes ago, there was nothing there. Now there is a pretty decent-sized severe thunderstorm right over there, so we're taking advantage of a lot of unstable air. And again, that's kind of right along this gust front, so kind of watching anywhere along this line for some possible thunderstorm development as we move ahead later on into the afternoon. So that's what we're seeing right now. We're going to go ahead and put the radar back on so you can kind of see things in a little more detail here on our regular radar. So again, this one not moving all that fast. I'm going to check the motion on it here, but I'd be willing to guess it is moving at about moving at 15 miles an hour. So that definitely brings the flash flooding risk into the picture, because you can just tell on the screen here, there's one particular area out here. I'm going to see if there's any kind of specific locations in there. I'm sure there is. Oakland, a place like maybe east of Arcola there, just kind of got this circle where there's been some rain for about the last 30 or 45 minutes. So that is where your more elevated risk for flash flooding is going to be as well. If you're just now tuning in, make sure to comment where you're watching from. Kind of let me know what you're seeing, particularly if you are in Douglas or Coles County, because you are probably seeing the only real active storm in the area. And Jacob is getting some content for some of the upcoming R towns. He just texted me a second ago. He's in Shelbyville right now, and he said he had about a 30 to 40 mile an hour gust there, and it immediately felt cooler. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the temperatures up here real quick too, and then we'll get back to this storm, since it is the one that we are most concerned about here at the moment, since it is our active storm. But let's go ahead and see if we can pull up those temperatures here. Yeah, just look at that. This looks like a rainbow. This is wild. You got a 68 in Bloomington, but it's 94 in Effingham. So that's just a wow. This is, I don't think we're going to see something like this too much more often, because we've got that rain throughout the morning. That's kind of keeping things nice and cool up this direction. It's not been bad in Champaign at all. Like Jacob just said, as that gust front moves on through, you notice those temperatures just drop off immediately. It's 74 in Decatur, but 92 in Mattoon. Those two cities aren't that far away, yet you're seeing a drastic temperature difference. So even though that's what your temperature chart looks like, take a look at this. This is going to be your dew point chart. And you will notice it is humid no matter where you are. And it is, in particular, just sweltering the humidity across Douglas and Coles County. That's why you've got that one storm just really kind of beefing itself up right now. You see that pink region? That is going to be a dew point close to 80 degrees. So that is some pretty high humidity, and it is even leading to some pretty hot conditions. I'm just going to talk about this briefly, since this isn't really severe weather, and that's what we're talking about right now. But look at that heat index over 100 down there at Effingham. That is some pretty nasty stuff. So some of you are tuning in and haven't had rain all day. You're probably thinking this is a little crazy hopping on here, because all it is a hot and sunny day. Well, that's going to lead to some thunderstorm development later on in the day, and maybe even in the current time frame, as we're seeing right here over parts of Coles and Douglas County. Like I said, this is on a 30-minute loop. You can see the clock up there for how long we've been watching this thing. This was not much of a storm about an hour ago. In fact, I'll turn the loop to an hour, and you will be able to quickly see just how fast the storm fired up. This thing happened at about 12:30. Went from just a little cell there to just, boom, exploded, and now starting to produce quite a bit of rain as well. So again, if you are tuning in, just kind of let us know where you're watching from, and also just kind of what you're seeing. I saw a few folks earlier that may have been watching from the Douglas County area. Linda says Tuscola, Douglas County, high winds and very heavy rain. Rain in Arcola, of course, and seeing someone, Tricia also said it is pouring in Arcola, and it appears they just did expand the severe thunderstorm warning, so they do have that southern part of the storm, this new developing stuff, actually trying to make its way close to the Mattoon and Charleston area. So if you are in Charleston right now, you are part of that warning. That one is issued, I would think, let's take a look here. That one is also issued for 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts as well as quarter-size hail. So it looked like initially maybe this is going to move a little bit to your north, but now some of this stuff developing on the back end has you in that target zone, both Mattoon and Charleston. Looking like Charleston's more likely to kind of take the impact than Mattoon is. So let's go back to our Charleston camera, and you can see things are looking a little turbulent out there. We'll get this moved over a little bit, and I'll let you take a better look at what's going on. And you can see the leading edge of that storm. It looks a little mean as it's getting ready to head into town there, and that's indicative of probably some pretty gusty conditions when it's starting to move in as well. So brace yourselves in Mattoon and Charleston. Their severe thunderstorm warning is now in effect as a pretty slow-moving storms heading your way. And on top of the windy conditions, I'd say the thing to watch with this is going to be your heavy rain potential. You could be seeing over an inch of rain per hour, and this thing could very well hang out overhead for much longer than an hour. So all of a sudden, the severe weather threat is increasing for the heart of Coles County, as we can see there from our Charleston camera. Definitely getting a little more turbulent that way as we continue on into the afternoon. So we're going to keep a close eye on that camera as that storm approaches. Just going to kind of take stock of where everything's at right now. And again, all across the area, looks like we're just kind of dealing with some general rain, maybe some pretty windy conditions up there around the Springfield and Lincoln area as well. We're kind of watch this stuff. Some storms have been pulsing up and down throughout the day. Not saying this won't go severe at any point, this stuff up here, but at the moment anyway, it does not appear that anything is rapidly growing. We are seeing some development outside of Springfield, but we're going to talk about this complex of storms that is really starting to strengthen up right now. And I would definitely be on the watch for this thing as it continues to move south and east. Talking about potentially at some point, this could be in Paris, this could be in Marshall, maybe into the Casey and Westfield area as well. So we need to really pay attention to this cluster of storms as it starts to make its southeastern advance. These moving at about 20 miles an hour. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to grab my little storm squall. I'm going to set it as if these storms are going 20 miles an hour as reported. So I'm going to pause things right here. I'm just going to drag my line right here. And we're going to see where exactly these storms are going to head over about the next 45 minutes or so. And try our best to get the trajectory just about right. It's going to pull up a whole list of towns here and the time, the approximate time that this line of storms is set to move on in. So anywhere on this list, Campbell around 108, Westfield 110. Also watching Maple Point at about 1:30. So anywhere on that list, it lists all kinds of libraries, schools, and parks of sorts. So maybe not always towns on there. But if you are on that list, brace yourself within the next 45 minutes. This storm likely to bring some very heavy rain and some pretty strong winds to the area as well, along with some hail. Let's check back in on our hail because we can see right about in this region right here between Arcola and Humboldt, just east of 57, there's a little bit of pink showing up on the radar there. And that is indicative of some decent sized hail. And we can see that right now on our hail chart. That dark blue right there east of Humboldt. This is a little bit delayed here, this hail tracker is, but we saw somewhat recently hail the size of about 1.3 inches. So close to that ping pong ball size. So that hail definitely on the increase as far as its diameter goes. And we will need to continue to watch as all of this pushes to the east. The hail's kind of been pulsing up and down a little bit. But again, as this storm heads this direction, Charleston, Casey, Westfield needs to kind of keep in mind that could be on its way pretty darn soon as well. I'm going to also now pull up the last couple of hours of our rainfall just to see how hard this rain is coming down here. So I'm going to let that load up real quick. And again, this storm is only about 45 minutes old, but we kind of put our little query tool on the bullseye up there in Douglas County. And we've got about 1.5 inches in the last 45 minutes. So you extrapolate that out a little more. It's about 2 inches per hour is what we're dealing with. So some pretty heavy rain. And that is going to be the story moving forward. Even if you don't have active severe weather as far as strong damaging winds, you're going to have some pretty heavy rain to deal with. And that on its own is going to lead to some risks as well. And again, keep an eye on the comments here. Anybody in the Mattoon, Charleston area, it's close to 1 o'clock. Maybe you're heading out to lunch soon from work. Definitely want to probably wait this one out here. Definitely don't want to be outside in the immediate future as this thing getting ready to enter Charleston. So let's waste no time and let's look at our Charleston camera. And it is looking awfully turbulent there. As we've mentioned, those clouds looking a little more ragged than before. That storm is about to enter town right now. So if you are in the city of Charleston, in the city of Mattoon, definitely want to stay indoors here for a little bit as things are about to get pretty windy and very rainy very shortly. So we'll watch as this thing moves on in. Very impressive watching this storm just kind of nosedive on into the area. So be prepared for that to roll on in. Also checking out our comments here. Mary says getting a little windy in Charleston. Justin says there's some spinning in Mattoon. So we'll keep an eye out for that as well. I've also got some radar tools over here on the side that I can kind of keep track of any sort of other activity aside from just the rain. I'm going to kind of play around with this here for just a moment while I let you guys look on there in Charleston. And let's see here. Doesn't appear. Now, all of a sudden, there is beginning to be just a little bit of, there's kind of some nooks forming in this line of storms, just a little bit to kind of raise interest levels to some extent. I'll pull up the radar again real quick and just kind of let you know what I'm talking about here. And I'll bring myself full. So we kind of always watch these little features here, these little kind of hooks, we'll call them. I don't really want to say that word because that's alluding to more of a tornado risk, but we kind of just watch these little holes that start to form in these storms for the potential of maybe some rotation at some point. That's not really a huge thing that's on the table today, but these storms definitely interact a little strangely when they're kind of running into each other and just interacting with one another. So we'll just kind of watch these little features here, see how the wind pattern kind of plays itself out a little bit. Not seeing anything significant just yet, but starting to see maybe the early indications that there might be some sort of rotation going in there. Of course, keeping an eye on our chat with the National Weather Service just to see if anyone's seeing anything. Emergency manager in Coles County reports nickel-sized hail on Route 133 and Route 130. So we've got some nickel-sized hail confirmed there in Coles County. I'm going to pull up the camera again there real quick because this is obviously our best chance of legitimately seeing what's going on. Looks like that storm is about to head right there into town. Likely going to be raining very, very soon there in Charleston. So again, stay indoors. Do not go outside right now as things are about to get pretty busy pretty quickly out there. Now just a little bit north of Charleston, as we can see from our sky cam. I'm also just going to briefly look at Mattoon here in just a moment and see what is going on that way. So I'm going to flip it there real fast and see what the Mattoon camera looks like. Probably not going to look quite, a little messy out there, but definitely can tell more of the storm activity is off to the east. So we'll go ahead and return to Charleston there and watch as this thing rolls on in. And again, just kind of tell us what you're seeing, where you're at right now, especially if you are in the Coles County area, because this is going to be a busy next hour or so as we are going to watch this storm roll on in. And there's the rain just getting going in Charleston, and it is going to stick around here for quite some time. So be prepared there in Coles County. Things are going to get a little stormy here over the next hour or so. There could be quite a bit of rain on the ground by the time it's done. Hopefully a little less traffic on the road here as this thing gets going. Hopefully people are heeding the warnings and staying inside. We'll pop back up radar here real fast and see what this looks like as it heads on into town. And there it is right now. Got it on a 30-minute loop. This thing definitely expanded quite a bit, and you can just see all kinds of little storm clusters that have run into one another and caused this thing to really beef itself up and really starting to turn into a big-time wind threat here. Wouldn't be surprised if there's some gusts over 60 miles an hour, closer to 65 miles an hour in there. So that's what we're watching that direction. And they did just expand that warning. Definitely no surprise there, especially as the outflow from the storm is likely pushing some winds out ahead of the storm. It's probably really windy, even where there's not rain. So places in southeastern Coles County probably getting in on that wind action. Westfield maybe even feeling a little bit of a gust right now. So they've expanded that warning to now include parts of, I believe that is Clark County now, and eventually into parts of Edgar County. So Paris, keep a heads up on things. It is right outside your doorstep, and now really starting to creep into Charleston right now. And Ashmore, Oakland definitely getting a big rain here at the moment. So we are watching that and keeping close eye and watching your reports as well, because this is some pretty active stuff. Our lone severe thunderstorm warning. So we're of course going to keep a close eye on this as it rolls into some pretty populated areas. What I'll also do now is, once again, check our hail sizes and just kind of see what we're dealing with as far as that goes. Again, this lags behind by, I'd say, about 5 minutes or so. So this is not actively happening in the spots where it says it is, but it gives us a little evidence as to what has fallen so far, and you can kind of anticipate out ahead of it what to expect. So that dark blue you might see around Oakland, that's kind of closer to that ping pong ball size hail, where that stuff out to the west is closer to quarter size than it is anything else, but still some severe caliber hail. So don't be surprised if you hear some thick objects smacking on your roof there that sound a little different than raindrops, because that is likely going to be the case as these kind of continue to move to the south and east here. And I'll kind of direct that, get rid of that real quick. So these are kind of heading this direction very slowly but surely. But the problem with this hail is even if it's not significant hail, which it isn't at the moment, if it's just kind of sitting in one spot for quite some time, it is going to give your roof a little bit of a pounding, any kind of outdoor objects a little bit of a pounding as well. And we just got a refresh on our hail, and you can see It has really pulsed up there right east of Oakland. So we're definitely talking about ping pong ball size hail within that storm as it marches south and east. Also keeping an eye on any kind of comments you guys are making here. You guys are definitely my fastest source for some live information. I'm just kind of checking some stuff out. Very dark in Kansas now, says Hope. Gene says close to 3/4 of an inch in Arcola of rain and still raining. Very windy in Mattoon. Let's get a look at that Charleston camera because this thing's probably heading straight through town right now. Yep, and there's all that rain. Things have become a little lighter. Traffic still continuing on. The business day must continue, but probably a little bit difficult driving in town there for a while, as we are likely seeing gusts somewhere upwards of 60 miles an hour, even if it's not directly in town there. So we'll kind of watch this for a little bit. This is exactly what you can expect as these storms move on in. Luckily for Charleston, I think the worst of the storm is staying just off to your north and east. So this is not what it looks like within the worst part of this storm. Thankfully, I wish we could see right there in the heart of the storm. But Charleston camera is not close enough to provide that. But I will mention, talking about parts of Edgar County here, we are going to be dealing with it looks like a hail situation pretty soon. You see that pink core. I'm going to freeze things here so it stops running away from me. Kind of see the pink popping up on radar. That's heading straight southeast. You're talking about like Dudley, Sims, the Elbridge area. We'll have to really watch those particular spots for maybe ping pong ball sized hail, maybe close to 2-inch hail at some point too. Because when you start to get a pink core as wide as this one is, that all of a sudden becomes the issue and the big thing to watch. So let's go ahead and look at our hail tracker again and just kind of see what it's estimating in there. And we have got some pretty, don't want to say significant, we've got some large hail in there. Purple, I think, is upwards of, okay, that's close to 2 inches. So you're talking about the size of an egg, a little smaller than a tennis ball size, thankfully. But this is all of a sudden when you can start to get some considerable damage. So things like ping pong ball size hail, quarter size hail, it might dent a couple of things, but it's not going to cause too much harm. When you start to get to the 2-inch hail category, that's when you start to see some damage to any kind of outdoor objects. So we need to definitely pay attention to this as it moves south and east. Hopefully going to dodge Paris, but not a guarantee at this point based on the storm ocean, just based on the fact that these storms are still expanding and growing. So definitely need to watch out for that hail threat. That's all of a sudden become a little more prominent than maybe even the wind threat is right now. Extremely windy in Ashmore, says Heather. Definitely seeing the activity pick up on this one. So again, wish I could kind of get a better look at that from our sky cams, but unfortunately, Charleston I say unfortunately, good for those in Charleston who aren't getting it, but it'd be nice to see a view of this thing because this is some pretty big looking hail that's about to move on through. So let's check on that warning. I would think that it's still moving. It's now moving at 30 miles an hour. So what I'm going to do, I'll grab my little tool again here real quick. I'm going to just kind of drag things out so that way the folks in that path can kind of get themselves prepared here. So we've got about a 30-mile-an-hour storm motion a little bit to the southeast. So we'll just kind of grab our little tool here, grab it right where that hail core is and see when things are going to be where. So Dudley in about the next 5 minutes or so. Let's do a better job of getting that on screen there. It's a little bit off the screen. Dudley at about 112, Sims close to 130, and Castle Finn right at 130 as well. So those are the places that we are watching for this big hail core to move on in pretty soon. And people also reporting some strong winds as well. Definitely a big part of this storm is the strong winds, but all of a sudden that hail threat really starting to tick up. And I'd be willing to guess if I check on this warning here, I'll even put it up for you guys to see. This one, am I looking at the right one here? Yeah, hail size threat for about 1.75 inches, so just short of that egg size, so closer to golf ball size hail. So that is the threat here, the highest threat at the moment. Let's just go ahead and take a look in Charleston real fast and see what it looks like there, since that's our best view. Obviously pretty rainy through there. Does not appear to be, that rain looks like it's coming down relatively straight. I'm sure it's pretty breezy in there, but it doesn't look like it's anything significant. Probably dodging the worst of the severe weather and maybe just catching the worst of the rain. Of course, I say that, I look a little closer. Now that rain definitely is coming in sideways. So definitely windy in Charleston right now. But I would say the threat that is going to kind of be the most prominent threat over the next 30 minutes. It's just how big some of this hail is about to be as it gets set to move through Kansas, eventually clipping the southwest side of Paris. Dudley, Sims definitely need to watch out for this, as this storm is now warned for hail larger than golf balls. So definitely be inside for that. Any kind of pets that you have outside, if you are away from the storm right now, get them inside real quick, or at least in a garage or something under some cover, so that way they do not risk a chance of getting plunked by one of these, because that's some pretty decent sized hail. Not the biggest we've seen, but it doesn't need to be the biggest we've seen to make an impact. And we can see now there's some pretty vibrant pink in this hail core. And when we put our tool on that, that's over 2 inches. So we're talking over the size of just an ordinary hen egg is what they call it. But you're getting close to even that tennis ball size at some point. So that is definitely a concern. Be inside right now if that is the case, because that is some pretty big hail to contend with. And again, this moving slowly but surely to the southeast, hopefully dodging the town of Paris there. I know that's our highest populated town through there. Hopefully heading roughly that direction, and kind of this little column here is where that's heading. So a place like Sims, definitely need to look out, as it is going to be there's going to be some pretty big hail that isn't really moving very fast either. I mean, this core is just slowly dragging itself. So we talk about flash flooding. You see some flash hail. It's just kind of sitting in one spot and training on itself. So that is definitely a concern here at the moment. I also just want to kind of take a reset here. Been really focusing on this storm. Just kind of taking a general look at the rest of the area here. And we can see there is some storm activity out there closer to Springfield. It does not appear to be anything significant at the moment. Looks like there's some pulses up and down through here. Likely some lightning embedded in there as well. But this doesn't appear to be anything out of control or wild at this point. So that's why we're keeping our focus down there to the southeast. Just kind of checking on some winds out there. There's some pretty popcorn storms out there around Springfield and Lincoln. So that's why we're kind of keeping our attention closer to the south and east. But of course, do feel free to, excuse me, let us know kind of what you're seeing, no matter where you are, because even though we're focused on this one down in the south and east part of the area in Coles, Edgar, and Clark County, we definitely need to hear wherever you are if you are seeing anything that we need to know about. Katrina asking, when should we expect the worst of it to pass? There's kind of 2 different rounds still expected to go throughout the day. If you've been watching the last couple of newscasts, you'll have heard me say kind of like a 2-round system today. First round was a morning round. From there was a bunch of question marks. That morning round has kind of transitioned into a bonus third round, I would say, where these afternoon storms are taking advantage of some pretty good atmospheric conditions to kind of keep themselves alive. It just kind of depends how this stuff plays out. We'll be dealing with this for the next couple of hours, but there could be some further redevelopment later on to the night as well. I guess the short answer to your question is we have a severe thunderstorm watch until 7 p.m. So at least until that long is when we need to be watching. So pretty much the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. There's that watch for those counties highlighted in pink. Again, this one's a little odd because there's storms happening right now. There's potential for some more later. So I don't want to say just because a storm passes through that you're completely off the hook, because you probably are not with any guarantee. Of course, you may end up being in the clear, but it's hard to completely tell based on how things are playing out right now. But here's our storm as it moves farther south and east, likely completely pass through Charleston, but Kansas probably getting a beat down of rain and probably some hail. And this thing kind of, I don't want to say it's taking a turn, but it's kind of moving a little bit to the east. So Paris likely going to get some heavy rain. Hopefully you dodge that hail core. It's going to be close. If you're on the south end of town there, be careful because it's going to get pretty active pretty quickly there. So that is what we're paying attention to. Again, this storm, you can kind of notice the warning here has like a black outline to it, whereas the ones behind it just kind of have the yellow outline. Anytime you see this black outline around our warnings, that's when the threat is considered considerable, which is when you start to get some larger hail, maybe some stronger winds. In this case, it's that hail because you can see some of that pink embedded in there. Let's check in once again on our hail sizes, and we continue to see that pink pulse roll on through. It looks like okay, so 2.4. We're, I think, above tennis ball size. Sometimes it's hard to keep them in order, but we're talking roughly tennis ball size, getting close to maybe baseball size hail there. So that is definitely a concern as we see that roll on through into parts of Edgar County. So yes, we are talking over roughly tennis ball size hail at close to 2.5 inches. So again, Sims definitely want to kind of take some cover right now. That hail is not anything to mess with. If you can get things inside, great. If you don't think you have time, play it safe and just stay inside. You don't want to be outside when tennis balls made of ice are falling from the sky. Obviously, that is not a good idea. Paris, you definitely need to watch this thing with some pretty close eyes, because even if it just misses you, it is not going to miss you by much. Della says starting to thunder in Paris. So anyone out there who lives in Paris, kind of just keep an eye on things and just kind of let me know what you're seeing, because that one's going to be awfully close, calling it awfully close as far as where that hail core is. We are watching some of the activity behind these storms. You can kind of see new stuff going up slowly but surely on the southwest flank of this stuff. So there's probably some pretty heavy rain embedded within some of those. Doesn't look like anything severe just yet, but obviously going to be some pretty heavy rain and maybe some gusty conditions eventually leading to some hail. So that is what's happening right now. But again, that hail core looks really good. I mean, this thing hasn't come down a whole lot. And in fact, it looks like it's getting a little larger. So we have some pretty large hail that we are dealing with as it gets ready to move just south of Paris, maybe into the Sims area before too long. So definitely take shelter. It's not any kind of tornadic activity, but it doesn't have to be for you to just kind of take shelter and get away from some of those thin walls and some of the siding. Just checking on a couple of messages here. I'm going to just kind of look at some stuff here on social media, because there could be a couple things to watch for. Of course, any of your reports, if we get our hands on them there, we like to post those to our page. And I know Jacob's not physically here in the building right now. He's out doing some stuff, but as you can imagine, he continues to get messages throughout the day. So we're going to kind of check his page out and see what's going on while I keep this radar image behind us, of course. So you can monitor that. Let's just take a look here and see some tree damage in Humboldt from these storms that have just moved through. Of course, that would be some of the recent stuff. That's what I've seen at the moment. Other than that, just looks like some shelf clouds rolling through. So we've got some tree damage. I'm going to see if I can show that to you guys there real quickly. I might get some Facebook ribboning around this, but it should get the point across pretty good. So let's just try this. And we'll do that to get it on screen here. And again, I'm kind of on a web browser here, so don't mind some of the stuff on the side. But there was some tree damage from Humboldt earlier as those storms were a little windy. And it doesn't look like to be a huge tree, but definitely not a little one either, bringing down some of those bigger branches. So that's what some of these storms earlier have done. It's that very same storm that we're seeing right now push on through, which that has gone from a wind threat to now a little more of a hail threat at this point, definitely. Again, Paris definitely cutting it close on this hail core. Basically, that hail core is right where this pink is. Anywhere right here is where you're going to see the biggest of hail. So that's kind of got a little bit of southeast motion to it. Might be somewhere between Paris and Sims, but I would say Sims is probably going to be the bullseye of that hail here in just a moment. Got a couple of people asking about tornado threats too. Doesn't look likely at this moment. So with this particular storm, yet there's some kind of rotation going on. It doesn't look great. I don't want to say no because our radar is really far away from this site, but I wouldn't be too worried about anything at the moment because that hail is definitely taking a little bit more of my attention than anything else right now. Mark says the power is out in Oakland right now from the backside of this storm, so probably some pretty windy conditions and heavy rain have contributed to that. Once again, let's check out Old Reliable here, our hail size tracker. This thing continues to kind of put that hail a little bit to the east. So I don't know. Like I said, it's going to be really close when it comes to whether or not this thing is going to move through Paris. Again, this lags behind by about 5 minutes, so this is not exactly where that hail is. But you can see, again, 2 inch. That's egg-sized hail, a hen egg-sized hail. continues steadily. I mean, it doesn't look like this hail is coming down all that much. And that is a little bit of a problem because we do not want to see much of that, because that could lead to some outdoor structure damage pretty quickly, or maybe dent some cars that are parked outside. Power is out in Ashmore, according to Heather. Power is out in Brockton, according to Marlene. So hopefully you guys are kind of watching on your phones here, so that way you can keep track of this even without electricity. Might be some more of those power outages coming soon as these storms continue to roll on through. Another thing that is happening with these storms, not happening with the storms, but happening with our coverage of them, is that this is moving really far away from our radar in Lincoln, and it's getting closer to the one in Evansville, but Evansville isn't exactly super close to what's going on. So we're looking really high up, and the upper levels of the storms look a lot better than the lower levels do, as far as you're more likely to see some of that pink popping up on there. So we're not getting ground level data. We're getting some upper level stuff. It's not be why it's looking like that, but there's definitely some hail happening right inside that storm right now. And it could be up to, I've seen close to tennis ball size hail at one point. So I'm not sure if that's continuing to happen, but it's getting awfully close to that criteria right now. And that's why we have that considerable tag on this storm. So continuing to watch that. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of cameras out this direction. The best one we had was the Charleston one, and those storms have kind of gone since then. So we really can't look at too much, unfortunately, but we can continue to monitor stuff. And what I'll do here, I'm going to keep having us look at the radar image. I know the recording station in Paris, this is going to be heading right to it soon. So we are going to see if the station has any gusts for us to report. This thing's updating a little slowly, so maybe that's not too reliable. But you guys are telling us it's super windy right now, and of course, I completely believe you. This kind of leading edge of this particular storm right now is probably sending some pretty nasty gusts out ahead of it as well. You could be talking about 60 to 65 mile-an-hour gusts from that line, even out ahead of it. You can start to feel the wind of those storms before they really even get going. As far as the rain goes, got some people asking about particular places on the map. Just to kind of bring everybody up to speed here real quick, let's just look at the whole area. Really only concerned, I missed some arrows down there. Let's get rid of those if we can. As you can see, that severe thunderstorm warning has now expanded to the now eastern half of Edgar and Clark counties. So we'll continue to watch that storm. That's really the only priority right now. Champaign, fine at the moment. Mattoon, Charleston, that threat has passed by you, so you're good for now. Springfield, Lincoln, maybe even into parts of Cass County there. There's some storm activity going on, but it's not anything too dangerous. It's going to be a little rainy, a little windy. There's going to be some thunder and lightning, but it's just kind of normal stuff. That doesn't look out of control whatsoever. So that's why we're keeping our eyes down here in the southeast, because that is where our strongest storms are. Hopefully it's about to exit before too long and become a Terre Haute problem. But man, I mean, on this latest scan, I do believe I am on the Evansville radar, which I am. So we're looking way up there, but you see that little bit of white up there in that storm. That means there is some seriously heavy rain, or there is some seriously large hail way up in that storm that could make its way all the way down to the surface at some point. Again, we rely a little more on that surface data because it's telling us what's happening at the ground. You don't want to take what's happening thousands and thousands of feet up in the air as what's actually happening right there. But that, anytime you see that white, you know a storm is pretty strong. This thing's not going anywhere anytime soon. Looking like, let's put this thing in motion just a little bit here and see how that is. Yeah, this thing definitely took a little bit of an east turn. That hail probably going to hit Paris here. So if you are in Paris, definitely hunker down and stay away from any windows. You don't want that hail to come in sideways and plunk a window that you're next to. We'll check that hail size. I wouldn't be too shocked if it's still right at 2 inches. It may even be beyond that at this point. Dudley looks like they took a direct hit from that hail. Let's put a tag in on that. 2.2. So that's between egg and tennis ball size. So that's pretty rough stuff there. And might be expecting some of that as we get into the Paris area. Like I said, this thing kind of taking a little bit of a turn east as opposed to southeast. So Paris, Sims, anywhere in between. Hunker down, do not go outside, and just kind of stay put here for a moment. It's not a tornado threat right now, but you should probably kind of treat it as if it's something similar. You kind of want to be away from windows or away from exterior walls. If you have a basement, that's a great place to be, no matter what kind of storm. Even if it's a regular severe thunderstorm, there's nothing wrong with going down into your basement there to stay protected from that. But this stuff, awfully nasty, and is going to kind of head right between Paris and Sims. So definitely the concern at this moment is that large hail that could cause decent damage to any kind of outdoor objects. Man, that is a really big swath there. So that doesn't necessarily say there's big hail throughout that entire thing. That just means as the storm has moved, it's continued to drop hail in that little corridor. That is a lot of bright pink there. Again, that's close to 2.5 inches. So we are on the doorstep of baseball size hail. Not good. That is going to definitely cause some damage. So please, 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 if you are watching in Paris or anywhere around it, stay inside. Try to get away from any exterior doors, windows, walls that you can, because it is going to get awfully noisy there with some of that hail getting ready to pound on down. And this storm's just not moving fast either. Last check, it was 30 miles an hour. So that hail is going to be right over the top of you for quite some time. Trying to find the balance here on our Lincoln radar. That's probably the closest one we can see. And again, there's some more storm development happening on the southwest side of that. But big concern is watching this thing move through Paris. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at while you guys look at the radar, I'm going to see if I can find anything on the Terre Haute cameras, because eventually it's going to head this direction. But I'd be kind of fascinated to see what the storm looks like from a bit of a distance. So let's see if we can find a Terre Haute camera to borrow here while we watch those storms behind me. Well, you guys, marble size hail, says Andrea. So we are definitely watching that hail get ready to increase. Which direction? Okay, so the Terre Haute camera looks awful. It doesn't look like it's showing too much definition, so we're going to not worry about that for the moment. Let's see. So we're kind of in that radar triangle. Indianapolis has one. Evansville has one. Lincoln has one. My radar is set to take the closest one based on where I'm looking. So we're kind of in that awkward zone where we're just kind of taking whichever one we can get. But the story stays the same. There is some considerable hail going on in these storms. And that is why we are getting what we're getting right now. This thing probably right overhead in Sims right now and in the south part of Paris as well. So please, please, please make sure heed these warnings, get inside your storm shelter, because it is going to be a little bit of a rough ride here for the next hour or so. Also combing through some social media, some chats to make sure that we are seeing anything, any sort of damage that may have come on by. And I'm not seeing anything new. Of course, you guys can help us out with that. If you're seeing anything or have any damage to report, please let us know, and we can get that relayed to everyone else there to kind of keep track of stuff. Still watching some other storm development out to our west as it gets ready to enter parts of Cass County, eventually Menard County, and of course parts north of Springfield. So keeping an eye on that. But this storm has our attention for good reason right now. Oh boy, you guys may have been able to hear that through my microphone. We just got a really loud thunderclap right here over the studio. That was scary. I didn't know what was going on there for a moment. So a little bit of activity happening in Champaign, it seems. But this is the big thing to watch right now. Kendra says hail in Paris. Yeah, anybody in Paris right now, stay inside, stay away from all this stuff. Marshall pretty soon getting on the action too. Still pretty windy in these storms is what I'm hearing lots of other people say too that are in there. Corey says fire department is being called to learn up for down. I wonder if that's Lerna. I'd be willing to guess that maybe autocorrect. So some power lines down in the Coles County area, it sounds like. So not too surprising. Probably going to have a lot more of that here in just a moment as these storms are now hitting parts of Clark and Edgar counties. Anywhere between Marshall and Paris is in for a pretty rough next 30 to 45 minutes here, as that storm is going to be dropping some pretty big hail. Let's check once again. Oh my. Okay. I'm not sure whether or not to believe that, because that's definitely possible. That's baseball size hail right there. So goodness sake, be careful if you are in that area, because that is big hail. That is some big time hail. Again, I'm not sure if the radar is detecting a little too high up and it's just kind of skewing the numbers there. But there's at least some egg to tennis ball size hail in there. And if that's true, that is over the size of a baseball and approaching softball size. So please stay indoors. Do not go outside right now. Yeah, definitely avoid that because this thing is going to make some noise. And as mentioned several times now, this thing is moving very slowly. So that hail is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Thankfully, it's about to push out of the area, but there's still some development happening on the southwest side of this. You can see another little pretty strong core going up southeast of Charleston. Casey, you need to watch out for that. Warning now expanded into Indiana across Terre Haute. Again, looking like we're probably going to see the end of this one here in just a moment from our area anyway. This storm not dying off anytime soon. But that is why they went ahead and issued that severe thunderstorm watch because things are getting pretty active very quickly. And definitely a little concerning as this thing moves into Clark and Edgar counties and hopefully on out here before too long because we have had enough to deal with already with this. Got some reports of some pretty strong winds there in Charleston. David says hail in Edgar County. Hopefully passing through very soon, south of Paris and into Sims. Kind of thought all along Sims was going to be the spot that was going to get hit the hardest. Looks like they're probably taking a pretty direct hit there. So stay indoors. Do not go outside. And please, please, please continue to follow us here, and we will get you through this. We'll get you through this storm as it continues to drop some pretty torrential rainfall, too. I mean, anytime you see the pink, that's indicative of hail. It's also indicative of some pretty heavy rain. I'm just going to pull up some rain totals real fast, just kind of show you how much rain is dumped down within the stuff. Again, this lags behind a little bit, too. But earlier out near Oakland and near Redmond, let's just throw a couple of markers there. Upwards of 2 inches near Oakland and over at 1.5 inches in Redmond as well. So rain coming down awfully quickly. Not the slowest moving stuff we've seen before, but it feels like this thing's moving super slow when it's dropping potentially baseball-sized hail down on you. That is never a good thing, of course. Also continuing to keep track of any kind of reports that are coming in. Good thing is this is on its way out of the area very, very shortly. But if we've got anyone listening or watching over in Indiana from the Terre Haute area, this thing is heading right towards you. So be prepared for some pretty big hail. It looks like the one in Indiana is only warned for, I say only, it's warned for 1.5-inch hail. So that's about golf ball size hail. That's still going to be something to contend with, but we might be dealing with something closer to eggs or baseballs right now in Sims and south of Paris, between Paris and Marshall, right up there along, that would be Route 1. That rain filling in awfully well, too. You can just see these storms have kind of closed the gap and producing all sorts of rain. So some torrential downpours are expected. And if there is some more shower and storm activity like is expected tonight, you've got places 2 to 3 inches of rain. You're about to add who knows how much more later on if storms get down that way. So maybe 4 or 5 inches is what you can see by the end of the day. But this is all we're seeing right now. That's all we'll worry about for the moment. Also kind of watching with some interest the stuff to the southwest. Across parts of Cumberland County and eventually southwestern Clark County. We are watching this stuff kind of develop behind it. Obviously, it's not drawing the same attention as the stuff to the northeast, but it's also stayed rather strong too. So probably some pretty heavy rain, some strong winds in there as well. Let's see if that Terre Haute camera looks any different. It really doesn't. It's got our best view, but that storm doesn't look terrific moving on in. Probably gonna have to wait for it to get a little closer. So I wish I had a little more to show you than just this radar stuff, but that's about all that we have. We can't really look at any of the cameras because they are at a place and not representative of what's going on. Checking again on the hail. That one makes a little more sense. Again, not that I don't believe what my computer tells me here, but that hail got awfully big, awfully quick there for a moment. So maybe close to baseball-size hail before it moved into Sims. Now you're talking about closer to egg-size hail, tennis ball-size hail between Sims and Paris. Luckily, the main part of Paris, downtown Paris, kind of dodged the worst of that hail for now. But it's still coming down pretty good just south of town there. What I'm going to do also, I'm going to put on my velocity picture here. And this is kind of a wishful thinking. We are just on the edge of our radar coverage, so it's hard to tell velocity stuff, but it's pretty windy through there. You can just kind of tell based on looking at what we call the reflectivity, which is just your regular radar image there, that this thing bowed out there for a little bit. It's probably delivering some pretty strong gusts as well. So checking through some comments here just to see what everybody is seeing. Goodness, I don't know if you heard that one either. There's some more thunder right outside here in Champaign. That's a little odd. That doesn't look like much, but it must be that close to the station here. That's just some kind of general thunder shower stuff. So loud here in Champaign, but not really doing too much right now. But yes, this stuff just really starting to just get really bulky. You can just see all of it kind of running into each other. The hail's been the big threat, but the rain, there's going to be some impressive rainfall totals just after this one is done. So be prepared for some possible flooding to take place at some point there. I'm just kind of watching all these other places up and down I-70, Effingham, Greenup, Casey. Probably going to get a little windy and drop some pretty heavy rain for a little bit, but your round of strong storms looks to be pretty brief compared to what the folks in southern Edgar County have had to deal with for the better part of about 45 minutes now. But this, thankfully, getting out of here very soon. And this was our active severe storm. This was all part of the same line that moved through in the northern part of the state earlier today, kind of up in here, moved on through, kind of weakened and redeveloped as it caught some of that warmer and more humid air. What I'm going to do, we're going to watch the storm head into Indiana, so that way we can kind of take care of our threat here at home. And then I'm going to kind of walk you guys through kind of the current thinking and what's going to happen the rest of the day, which current thinking has been different every time because this stuff has just been messy. Models have not done a great job of picking up on what's going to happen. And while we have our own skill set when it comes to predicting this stuff, what's going to happen, we really do lean on those models to kind of give us the best idea of where something's going to happen, how big it's going to look, how much impact it's going to bring. So it's always helpful when those models do well, but they haven't been doing the greatest job because there's not much that said there was going to be this storm cluster surviving into the afternoon. That's exactly what we've had, is that first line took its time getting through, and it's been able to strengthen with help of the afternoon heat and humidity. So there it goes. Marshall probably getting quite a bit of rain right now, probably getting some decent hail, even if it's not that big pink core south of Paris now, getting ready to head into Elbridge and eventually into the Terre Haute area. I really am surprised that's all that I can see on the Terre Haute camera. I'm going to actually play that out real fast and just kind of take a peek and see. Okay, that makes a little more sense. So my image must have been. So it's about to come down there in Terre Haute before too long, too. So if you are out there in Indiana watching from that direction, particularly the Terre Haute area, of course, they've got their own stations out there, so probably a lot of people that follow them. But things are about to get pretty rough out there. That's kind of what our storm looked like as it moved in. We had the Charleston camera earlier when that storm looked like it was going to go straight past town there. And this thing has not come down one bit, and it's got a barrel of instability out ahead of it to continue to stay this strong. Hopefully it plateaus at some point and doesn't continue to pulse up. This thing has not gotten weaker, I don't think, in the last 15 or 20 minutes. It maybe hasn't gotten too much stronger, but this thing is still pretty hefty as it hopefully is crossing the state line soon. And hopefully it doesn't cause problems for anyone else, but potentially leaving the area and at least giving us less of a headache here before too long. But still, even beside that warning, you've got stuff between Casey and Neoga right now. Again, probably some small hail in there, maybe penny-sized stuff at the most, and pretty windy, but more of a rain thing than anything. So Casey definitely getting in on the rain right now. And just south of Neoga, maybe Sigel getting in on that action too. Continuing to check through any kind of messages, any kind of social media stuff that might be coming up. Even the National Weather Service notes, they called that storm in Edgar County a monster storm, which I would agree, a monster of a storm. It says once that one exits Edgar and Clark counties, we are looking at a notable lull in severe activity. So things going to be a little quiet, but that doesn't mean we are out of the woods because there is all kind of boundaries being laid out for potential development later on into the afternoon and evening. And that is going to fuel what I guess is now round 3. This kind of took place as round 2. I'm going to have a look at round 3 later on today and what that may bring. So this essentially getting on out of here. Marshall, Elbridge definitely taking a shot right now. Let's look at the hail size. It's looking a little more confined to one specific zone, so maybe it's coming down just a little bit, but you're still talking about hail easily the size of an egg. So that is still considerable stuff that we'll need pay close attention to as that storm moves over into Indiana. But the good thing about that is when it's in Indiana, it's not in Illinois, and that's where we are. So that's what we care about for sure. But yes, as National Weather Service noted, things are awfully quiet. Going to have to assess where some of those boundaries have laid out because I'm going to show you real quick here. This is what it looks like right now, temperature-wise. And that's significant because that shows you where the most unstable air is. Things have cooled down quite a bit, 70s across much of the area, but you still notice some of that instability down here. What could happen is once these storms clear out, we'll just kind of have to look and see how these temperatures recover. If they do, it might not matter if they recover or not because you look across the state and there's still some pretty unstable. It's 100 in St. Louis. It's 100 degrees in St. Louis. We talked about how today could be a super hot and muggy day, and it was for a lot of us. But had these storms kind of stayed away, it could have been 100 or close to it today. I'm not going to say that was ever in the forecast, but mid-90s easily possible. So we're kind of seeing some of that more stable air up that direction as far as the temperatures go. And the dew point, though, still kicking, upper 60s, low 70s. So we'll just kind of have to see how the atmosphere is able to recover. We've been talking about how the final round of the day, that evening round, is highly dependent on what happens this morning and this afternoon. So now that that stuff's happened, we're going to have to just take a break and look and analyze, and just kind of figure out where the next stuff is going to be. So we'll keep an eye on that. But we'll watch this thing get on out into Indiana here so that way we can kind of reset things and just take a look at what's going on. Again, Elbridge, Marshall, definitely getting on the heavy rain. The hail threat eventually getting on to Terre Haute. Let's just look at Terre Haute for... And yeah, they are watching that storm move on in. And they've got some definition out here. I know it's a little hard to see. Let me pull that full screen. Got a little bit of a definition going on here on that storm. You kind of see on the left side of your screen, maybe a little bit of kind of lowering there as some of the winds push on out. Again, not really much of a tornado threat here with this, as ominous as that may look over there on the other side. But that is now pushing over into Indiana. So no matter what happens in that, it is going to be out of the area with whatever it decides to do. And will no longer be affecting us. But that's the storm we've been tracking. It still looks pretty good. Not that it's coming down in intensity. It's just leaving us and heading out there into Indiana. So we are going to be in the clear temporarily pretty soon. For anything immediately, there's still, as I've alluded to a couple times, potential for more storms later on this afternoon and evening. But there goes our latest round of storms, and it looks like something else is kind of pulsing up on the southwest side of this thing. So maybe we're going to be in for a little extra here for a little longer. Parts of southern Clark and northern Crawford counties are probably looking at some pretty heavy rain and some hail as well. Again, just to kind of show you what I'm looking at here. We are looking at this little pink blob right outside Casey right now. As it looks like something's pulsing up just a little bit on the southwest side of these storms. So potential for that activity ramp up here pretty quickly. But it will be very short-lived as it is not going to be in Illinois for too much longer. Everywhere else, kind of seeing those storms continue to hang out around I-55 and I-72, around Springfield area. Nothing looks too good with that, but there's cluster storms that we'll need to pay attention to later. And then we've got, obviously, this monster of a storm heading southeast, eventually getting on out of the area. So the warning's starting to get trimmed on that as it is quickly becoming a problem for the Terre Haute area. Let's go ahead and look at some aftermath stuff here. Let's check a look at some rain and see what the totals look like right now as this thing heading on out. I'm probably looking at close to 1.5 to 2 inches there, as we saw earlier. So yeah, 1.7, 1.7, just kind of around the Oakland area, around Kansas, a little bit west of Paris there. That's the rain we've seen. No official hail reports that I have been able to come across from the comments or from social media yet. But there was potential for baseball hail in there at one point. Whether or not that came to fruition will be a mystery, at least for the next few minutes until we hear about something. But probably at least golf ball size hail, if not egg sized hail in that storm for a little bit. So it was pretty impressive there for a short period of time. Just going to kind of comb through some social media here and see if anybody has sent in any kind of images or things of that sort. So let's take a look. And doesn't look like anything new. So we've seen some wind damage. We've heard of some power outages. That's not a bad idea. Let's see what the power outage numbers look like. James says down trees south of Paris. It's not too surprising to hear that. So definitely some wind damage there. Let's look at the outage map and see what that shows. So yeah, why not just show that here real quickly? I'm going to pull up the power outages. Just kind of let you look through some numbers here. I will switch that real quick so you get a better view. So this is on poweroutage.us, giving us a look at the Illinois outages here. We're going to start there in Coles County, where about 1,000 people are out of power right now. So a pretty decent amount of people have lost electricity there. In Edgar County, that number is also close to 900, quite a few out. And then in Clark County, close to 300 out. So lots of outages happening as this storm has continued to keep its form. So several without power, including Cumberland, close to about 60 there. So not super high numbers, but definitely a pretty localized set of a few thousand people are without power right now. So that is going to be something that needs taken care of here later on this afternoon in the hot and muggy air once that passes on through. But yes, several power outages. I've heard of some power lines being down, specific locations not necessarily named. I've heard some trees down too. So some pretty classic stuff considering what we saw. Allison says Lake Sarah area has no power as well. So there is some of that. Down tree across Route 1 south of Paris. James, is there, if you have a photo to share, if you can, maybe just message me or Jacob on Facebook if you have a picture. If not, don't worry too much about it there. But I'd like to pass that report along to the National Weather Service, and I think pictures always go well with that. Don't get yourself in harm's way doing that, but I'll definitely pass that along there and hear anything else that you have to say. So down tree across Route 1 in Paris. Let's go ahead and pass that along here. We'll tell the National Weather Service that. Down tree across Route 1 south of Paris. Okay. Okay, so we've got that taken care of here. I'm just kind of reading something here from National Weather Service. Sorry for the silence there real quick. But National Weather Service says there's a couple models showing some clustering of severe wind gust potential just south of I-70 within the next 1 to 2 hours. So that's likely going to be out of the area as that cluster moves on through. So they say the next round of storms, if that forecast holds up, likely to stay south of us. So definitely good news there to hear on that. I'm going to check in real quick on Terre Haute there, see what they're seeing. The leftover part of this storm. Oh, man, that's some pretty nice little cloud movement there. You can see at the top of the screen, those clouds moving on in real quick, leading edge of the storms, passing on through. And you can see just there in the distance. That's really cool. You can kind of see the trees disappearing. You're about to see right as the rain enters into town there. So that's kind of neat to see that happening right now. That is real neat to have that image of that storm rolling on through. But this is what we saw in Edgar County, Coles County, Clark County there for a little while. And now what they are seeing in Indiana. Again, storm is not dying off. It's just going somewhere else. So it is going to be a problem elsewhere here for a little bit. But yes, that's kind of cool to see that roll straight on through Terre Haute there and getting some much lighter colors behind that, and the rain probably soon to fall there That's going to be pretty cool view to watch as that storm rolls on in. So watching that. And essentially, our storm threat for the immediate time period is definitely waning, or severe threat, that is. Just kind of looking at radar here on the side, so you guys can keep watching that cool little sky cam as that storm moves through Terre Haute. Probably next to Martinsville is still seeing some pretty good rain, maybe some small hail. Effingham's getting a little bit of rain right now, but nothing severe or really too close to it, I do not imagine. Other than that thing right next to Martinsville, that might be a little strong. But other than that, our threats are really coming down here. We're going to keep it on for the next several minutes as these storms exit to make sure nothing else pulls us up. But probably going to take a break here within the next 15 to 20 minutes, just so we can kind of reassess some stuff, get the forecast written up, and kind of get prepared for what's happening later on this afternoon. So taking a look at all of that and checking your comments as well. Okay, so we've got that passed along. There you go. Now the rain's starting to pick up there in Terre Haute, and this is exactly what some other folks in our area saw earlier today. Now Terre Haute's turn to get in on that action, and it's going to be very windy and very rainy here for a little bit of time. So we'll watch that here for just a moment. Okay, so that is what's happening in Terre Haute right now. And we'll pop back up our radar picture here as they're about to get quite a bit of a storm themselves. That's what's happening out there. Put on that camera again just a second because that is kind of fun to look at. But just continuing to watch this little cell out here on the southwest side of this stuff that could continue to bring a little bit of a severe hail threat for maybe the next 10 or 15 minutes. But our threat kind of coming down here. You can see stuff across Effingham, across maybe even to Toledo and Casey, but nothing that looks immediately threatening. This stuff down I-72 looks like it's coming up just a little bit. We'll kind of have to see how that plays out. But our biggest concern is now heading across the state line and into Indiana. So let's just go ahead and take a look at that again. And yeah, oh man, there's very little visibility there in Terre Haute. So that's exactly what we were seeing earlier with all, oh man, this is impressive. This is the view I was missing earlier. Again, I don't wish anybody to see something like this, but that thing just moved east of Charleston. I knew we're kind of missing out on a pretty nice storm. So that is some pretty powerful punches being thrown there in Terre Haute as our storm has now crossed over and is almost completely blanketing town there with heavy rain and likely some hail in that part of Indiana now. So thankfully, our threat is pretty much taken care of here for the immediate future, but we will continue to watch how things play out here. Again, kind of have to watch how the atmosphere recovers over the next several hours and see just kind of how things either rebound or don't rebound, where it happens and all that. So we'll keep close eye on that. The most unstable air is definitely in southern Illinois. So that is the next spot to watch. But that's all kind of south of I-70, so not really a problem here for our particular viewing area. But that's where we're watching. Again, this has been kind of a complicated forecast. There hasn't been a whole lot of consistency from one model to the next as far as what to expect. So it's a little difficult, obviously, from a forecast perspective there. But we can always see stuff in real time and kind of make our judgments based on that. Let's take a look at Effingham now. I know there's a little bit of rain, probably nothing wild there, but let's just take a look. Yeah, that's some pretty nice rain coming down Effingham, some sideways rain. So it's probably getting a little windy there based on the looks of it. So that is what it looks like in Effingham as a mild storm passes through. We'll call it mild as it doesn't appear to contain any kind of severe risk with it at the moment. Maybe it's going to pulse up here in just a little bit, but hopefully it'll move out of the area there. For the time being, got a couple of people asking questions about just where they are at. So what's happening where they are at? Essentially right now, I would say there is very little activity across a good chunk of the area. It's kind of this line of general thunder showers, thunderstorms, along I-72 west of Springfield. But aside from that, the majority of us staying nice and clear. A couple storms still pulsing up around I-70, but Champaign, Danville, Decatur look fine. There's probably a few thunder showers in there, but nothing that can't be handled here for sure over the next hour or so. So a lot of rain has been delivered, and that is cooling things down a little bit, putting some clouds overhead. That may or may not affect how things work over the next couple of hours, but we will, of course, find out the answer to that as we continue ahead. So now that our storm is essentially out of the area, our big one, still dealing with some problems there in the east part of Clark County, but that is pretty quickly becoming a threat that's over with. Still watching this little thing south of Casey, though, for some hail. But what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to look at just a future track model that takes us through the rest of the day. So let's bring that full screen, and I will load the image I want to here. And this model's been a little quirky with how it's been loading on my system today. So hopefully it lets me show what's happening here and doesn't pause on me like it's been. Okay. So according to this model, that line of storms is going to continue to, hold its own over the next several hours, cause some problems in southern Illinois, south of I-70 and around the Terre Haute region. But you can see that development happening up there to the northwest sometime later this evening. And that is when another round is possible. What this looks like, where it's at, all questions that are very valid and can't be answered from these models alone. We'll kind of see how that goes. Again, the environment's been kind of rained upon and cooled down quite a bit, but that doesn't stop things from happening elsewhere and then moving into the area. So that's what the most recent model projection shows. We'll kind of take that how we will, because not a lot of models showed what's happening this morning super accurately. But again, that at least leaves the impression for some redevelopment later. So that's essentially what you need to know. There is some more activity happening at some point later on today, likely closer to sunset and afterwards. That is why we have that severe thunderstorm watch until 7 p.m. Probably going to be extended for some, shortened for others. It was a little, it's just kind of hard to tell how that severe risk is going to play. You can just kind of hear me, a little speechless at times. It's odd. It's a tough one to forecast. I like to think that I can forecast everything and get it right every single time, but as you all well know, sometimes that is not how it works. But we'll watch this severe threat. It is going to be there across a good chunk of the area later on this evening. Is it going to be a widespread thing? Could be, or it could just kind of barely touch us. It's a little hard to tell because it just kind of depends on how everything plays out. Right now, we've got some really stable air across the area, so it's going to be really calm here for a little bit. But even though it's calm here in northern Illinois and in Iowa, it is very hot. It is very humid, and it is setting up for potentially the for some more storm activity later. So that is definitely why we are continuing to emphasize there's more activity to happen later. As you see, it's 71 in Champaign, but Iowa, close to 90 degrees. They've got some pretty good dew points out that way too. Your moisture content, mid-70s on your dew points. So there's some very unstable air up that direction. And that's likely going to form some more storms at some point. Some models kind of wanted to push things a little more to the west, which would be great. That is a possibility. Some other models want to have it go right down the center of central Illinois. That would not be great. But again, that answer is still highly in question because it just really depends how the atmosphere kind of recovers or doesn't later on this afternoon. Because right now, even though activity's calmed down, will that be the case later? Again, the potential is there. That's about the best thing I could say, is that the potential is going to be there. But until we get a little closer and start to see how things unfold, it's still a question mark, unfortunately. But we can definitely give you the possibilities there. Probably some pretty windy storms to come later tonight. But for now, it looks like things have really calmed down. Let's peek in on our friends over at Terre Haute again real quick. After checking out Effingham, raining still sideways. Let's go back to Terre Haute and see how that storm continues. And which one were we on earlier? I think it was this one. Let's play that one out and see what it's showing. And wow, yeah, okay. So I think it's still raining there. I don't see the tops of the buildings. I could at one point. I don't know if the camera's down, if they turn the direction, or if that is just a bunch of rain. I'd be willing to guess it's just a bunch of rain and they turned the direction a little bit, because it literally just looks like a blue screen right now. I can see a little bit of blinking. So Terre Haute taking a direct hit there without a doubt. So not much info can be gathered from that camera other than it stormed pretty good. So let's just return things back to Effingham and see what's going on over there. And again, just kind of some general thunderstorm activity. So not too much to speak about there. Let's see here. We can check it on Springfield too, may as well. Let's see what's going on out that direction. Again, this hasn't been too impressive looking for a little while, but not to say we're in a pretty stable environment up that way. So I'd be a little surprised if we get a lot going on. Again, you can kind of see some of that. Just realized I don't have the camera up behind me here. You can see some of that indication that there's some stormy weather heading there, but it doesn't look anything near what we had move through Coles County and Edgar County earlier. So not as much of a concern, even if it gets a little windy, a little rainy out there. It's going to be pretty controllable here over the next couple of hours. Despite being in that severe thunderstorm watch, I don't think this is the best area for any kind of active weather to happen at the moment. If it does, of course, we'll pay attention to it and let you know. But what I'm likely going to do here, I've got a buddy in Robinson. He does some, he works out of Olney, but he's doing some stuff in Robinson right now. So it's getting pretty windy there. So we still have that threat in the area. I'll probably keep it here for just a little bit to make sure these storms get out without too much going on, because we've seen this stuff happen pretty quickly today. But I'm going to real quickly turn off my audio here for just a sec. I need a drink of water just to kind of keep up with stuff. So keep the radar image there for just a moment, and I will be back in about 15 or 20 seconds here. Okay, now that was a nice, refreshing drink, and we are good to go again. So, still watching this line of storms as it continues to move slowly but surely southeast. We are mainly staring at some sub-severe winds and some pretty steady rain out that direction for the time being, but nothing really severe at the moment, at least the way it sits. Well, that stuff over Effingham is kind of pulsing up a little bit, starting to see some dark red, some dark pink. So let's kind of take a look at things there, because this storm might be getting a little stronger here slowly but surely. So let us go back to Effingham and see what's happening. Hopefully we can fight the wind here in a second. I'm going to try to turn the camera. Of course, we need the camera to be looking there first. You can see some pretty fair skies south of town there, as expected, because there's not much going on in that direction. But that's what it looks like there in Effingham right now. And we'll watch and see how that storm kind of interacts with stuff here. And we'll point it back to the north, because that's kind of where it's coming from. A little misleading looking at the nice fair skies that way. So let's battle the wind here and see if we can get a little bit of a better view. And we are slicing through that wind without any problems there. And let's look to the northeast now. Kind of lost my direction for a second. So we're looking off to our northeast. So things don't look all that crazy in Effingham. It's raining, it's windy, I'm sure, but it doesn't look like anything super strong there in town. So hopefully it remains that way. Cody on the stream now. That's my guy from Alney I was referring to. Says it's getting pretty windy in Robinson. So let's kind of take a look at things real quick out that direction. And we can see there's still some leftover storms and maybe even a little bit more developing there pretty soon. Again, sub-severe stuff at the moment, but maybe not too shocking if you have a 40 or 50-mile-an-hour wind gust somewhere in that region. As these storms are unfortunately kind of stationary. Would have loved for these things to keep pushing southeast a little bit, but this particular cluster here does not look like it's moving all that much. Doesn't have a whole lot of pep to its step there. So we'll kind of watch for primarily a rain and breeze threat, I would say. Not really super gusty, but a little bit windy. So we'll watch that. But aside from that, things are pretty quiet all across the area, as that big old storm has moved into Indiana now. So that's out of sight, out of mind. Watching as more stuff continues to happen along 72 here. You can see plenty of lightning in those storms. So Springfield likely to get in on that action soon. Jacksonville definitely taking a hit there from some of those storms. Beardstown getting in on the action soon as well. But we'll watch this stuff around the Effingham area. Again, trying to organize itself right now. Somewhat succeeding, but it's awfully slow moving and not rapidly developing. So there's only so much we can do with that. Let's go ahead and just watch this thing for a little bit in Effingham. Just kind of take a look and see what we're seeing. Again, relatively calm there in Effingham now, not quite as windy as it looked earlier, but still some rain here and there, some much needed rain. Effingham hasn't gotten a whole lot in the last several days. Neither has Edgar County, but they got quite a bit there in a very short amount of time. So I'm sure we're a little thankful for that, but don't want any flooding action to happen there. So that is what it looks like in Effingham. There's a nice steady rain continues to fall, probably some thunder and some wind in there every now and then. And just kind of combing around here. And we'll see all kinds of... so I've got quite a few reports that I'm going to share here real quick. I have nothing to really show, but maybe I do. Let me see what I can do here. Okay, so I'm going to pull on our storm reports. And I'm just going to kind of narrate through a few things that have happened. So you can see some reports of some damage in Edgar County, Coles County, and some wind there in Matthew and Charleston. So I'm just going to kind of read through a list here of things that I've seen. So in Edgar County, there was a report 2 miles south of Paris. There's that tree down across Route 1. That was the report that we had earlier from our chat there. So good to see that one passed along. We had hail, quarter-size hail in Paris. So it looks like they dodged the worst of that. Let's see. So that's a repeat of the one earlier. Public report of trees down on Vermilion Road, just north of the lower T. That would be in Vermilion in Edgar as well. I've got a couple of photos now getting circulated through the emails of some hail that was seen in Paris. So let me pull that up here and see if I have anything to share. See if we can get any good photos there. Again, it sounds like quarter-size hail in Paris, so it sounds like you missed the worst of it. But if we have something to show here, we are absolutely going to show you what we can see. So let's look here and find out for sure what we're looking at. There we go. Let's see if we can blow this one up just a little bit. Getting that one to load here, so just bear with me for a moment. There we go. So let's look at that report from Paris of the hail. And it is roughly about quarter size, I would say. You can just see it in someone's hand there. Kind of hard to tell without any objects placed right up next to it, but roughly quarter size hail. So that's what we had go through Paris. Thankfully, didn't have anything much bigger. Quarter size hail is considered severe, but it is not quite as bad as double the size of it, as you would suspect. So that's what we saw in Paris. Good to see those photos coming in. And now we'll switch back to radar here and see. Yeah, some of this stuff, it's keeping its form as it kind of just a little bit of an arcing line from Effingham to Newton to Robinson up to Terre Haute right now. Just kind of a curved line that continues to produce some form of storms, sub-severe for many, but then still enough to bring us some rain and some pretty windy conditions out that way as well. So aside from that, there's not too much going on. Unless there's any kind of reports coming in, it's hard to see too much else to pass along here. And we are about an hour away still from getting some other models to refresh and kind of give us a look at the afternoon. So kind of in that downtime where we're wrapping up with this first round, kind of anxious to see what the second round is going to hold. And we will be able to look at a few things here. I'm just kind of looking off camera at some of my models here just to kind of see what they do. Keeps those storms around a little bit here in the afternoon. But yeah, this evening thing looks pretty messy. It's hard to pinpoint a time. It's hard to pinpoint a location, which I know sounds pretty bad because we love to do that, but it's just so back and forth with some of the placement of this stuff that it's hard to say with any certainty it's going to happen here. It's going to happen at this time because the consistency with this stuff has just not been there. But that's why we just kind of want everyone to kind of look out for what could happen later on. I think more at this time, it's going to turn into a wind and rain threat into the evening. But that's not to suggest that there isn't an outside chance that maybe a spin-up tornado if things play out a certain way. It all just depends on where these storms end up. And that is that's going to be a little tricky to figure out because we have to see how and when things can recover. But as mentioned, there was some pretty unstable air outside of the area that could produce some storms that eventually move into our portion of Illinois once again. Just kind of taking a look at anything there is to report. And there doesn't appear to be too much going on. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to pull up that storm report page again. And we're just going to look at some stuff together here. I'm just going to kind of throw some tags on it and see what's been reported, maybe some stuff we've said before. We're going to start here in Coles County near Cook's Mills. Let's see what that first one was. So we have tree branch of about 4 to 5 inches snapped off on a tree in Humboldt. Okay, that may have been actually Jacob's picture earlier, so that's what that was. Got a report of a gust between Mattoon and Charleston of 58 miles an hour, which is right at severe thunderstorm criteria. That was at the airport. And then just near Lerna, it looks like. What do we have there? Tree down on a power line in Campbell. That was at 113. And we'll look out here in Edgar County. There's probably our report of 1-inch hail. And that's exactly what it was. Some damage. That was probably the tree on Route 1 there that we reported earlier. There we go. And then one more here just outside of, I believe, is that Stratton? It is. So let's look at that one. And public report of trees down on Vermilion Road just north of the Lower T, relayed by Broadcast Media. Okay, so that's all the reports we have at the moment as far as damage is concerned. There's some more stuff out there south of Terre Haute over into Indiana. But that's all the recent stuff. Everything else was from a little earlier in the day today. I do believe, anyway. Let me check on that Springfield one. So that was close to noon. Tree fell on a power pole at East Kansas Street in South Wheeler. Okay. So that, yes, was also earlier in the day. Logan County stuff probably also from earlier, 1150, as those storms moved on through. So everything else is much earlier in the day. So caught up to speed on the reports that we have had up to now. And still kind of watching with some interest this stuff down here in the southeast. Again, it doesn't look like it's going to... Doesn't look like it's going too fast. Doesn't look like it's strengthening too quickly there. But we'll continue to keep an eye out for it. At some point, we will wrap up things here because we do need to, here at the station, kind of get some stuff together and kind of just look at some more data. Haven't had a whole lot of time to look at that stuff here in the past couple of hours. Definitely want to make sure we're looking at everything we need to know for the forecast here coming up later. So probably somewhat soon going to wrap up. Just going to see how this... thing outside Robinson and Newton goes here for just a moment. But there is that threat for some more severe weather later on into the evening that we will have to pay close attention to. But right now it looks like our severe threat is pretty mild. There's going to be some ordinary storms down there for a little while, but nothing really to be too concerned about at all. So probably what I'll do here I'll give you guys a glimpse into what could happen tonight, and I'll probably wrap up there. I still see that stuff down in the southeast corner of the area, but as mentioned, I don't think that's going to do anything. If it does, it's going to be very short-lived here in our area. If anything changes, of course, we will hop right back to it. But let's look at future track here. Again, these models have not been fantastic most of the day, but it's still got some of that storm activity. And notice that location-wise, that's not where the storms are right now, so just kind of move everything a little bit south. Some development happening in southern Illinois later. It's a pretty quiet activity for a while before some more storms bubble up. Is this exactly where those storms are going to end up? Not necessarily. It's just what this one model says. But the key is that development is possible later on tonight. Could bring some gusty conditions, could bring some pretty heavy rain. And we will have to just kind of go from there as far as what to expect for the rest of the night and possibly even into tomorrow morning. So that's kind of the situation right now. Robinson looks like storm's pulsing up just a little bit there. Give it about 5 minutes or so, watch and see what this thing does. But don't see the need to stay on here for too much longer as our big threat has passed on through. Certainly our threat of that one storm near Edgar County and Coles County earlier, that was the big one. That one has coming on and likely are not going to see anything close to that here for the next several minutes, or for the next several hours, excuse me. I do want to put on Springfield's camera real quick, though, and that is Effingham's camera. Let's try Springfield, because I see off the corner of my screen here, there's some decent rain in town. Again, mild storm, nothing really to fear too much, but getting some quality rain out there in the capital, maybe some pretty windy conditions as well. This camera kind of dramatizes things. It's always bobbing around even when it's a really calm wind outside, so it's a little windy there, but we're not getting some big-time gusts there like the movement would suggest. Yeah, definitely a little stormy up there in Springfield. Just saw a nice little bit of lightning there a second ago. So that is the view right now on the far western part of the area. Let's get a little look here at our radar picture. Just kind of see what's happening. And there's some stuff between Springfield and Decatur, like right over Mechanicsburg right now. Maybe a little bit of a cell moving through. But nothing imminent, it doesn't look like. This stuff has been relatively the same strength for a better part of an hour now, so not too worried about anything kind of happening too quickly out that way. Again, some windy conditions, some heavy rain, that's about it. And watching as some of those storms move through Robinson right now. Hopefully moving out pretty soon. I'd say in the next 15 minutes, that is likely going to be out of the picture. But just kind of watch again for the next 5 minutes, and then we probably ought to wrap things up so we can get a look at what's coming this evening. And we will kind of pick up things from there. Just answering a couple messages here on the side while we continue to watch the radar there on the side. Okay. But yeah, I'm going to get a little rainy there in Crawford County for just a little while, maybe a little bit windy, but I really do think our severe threat is quickly ending here for the current time. Likely to see some more activity pick up later on into the day, but we will have to kind of wait and see how that plays out. Of course, we, in a couple hours, have our 4 o'clock newscast coming, and that is going to kind of be your bridge into what's happening next. That'll give us plenty of time between now and then to kind of see what is in store for us the rest of the night. And you can kind of continue to watch things from there. The National Weather Service did issue what is considered a special weather statement. They tend to do that for storms that are strong but not severe. That is for, see if I can do my best just to kind of highlight a little area here on the radar. That is for roughly this region for about 50-mile-an-hour gusts as that line continues to pass on through. So that will be something to contend with here for the next 15 to 20 minutes. But again, if this stuff is on its way out, we're probably going to wrap up pretty soon here. So just prepare for some windy conditions. Again, some rain, not anything that we can't handle for sure. It doesn't look like there's any kind of big time uptick in this stuff expected in our area, maybe as it moves southeast, but likely not going to see too much here in central Illinois for too much longer, aside from just this storm in Robinson, kind of hanging out, pulsing up a little bit, but on its way out of here before too long. So again, I'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to kind of look through some other stuff, so I might be pretty quiet here for just a moment, but I'm probably not going to go away until that thing is through Robinson. So we'll kind of keep one eye on that and another eye on a few other things here. And there's that. So National Weather Service has some pretty nice tools that they have access to, and they're kind of sharing it with us here in the chat. They are showing basically a model that shows where there is a probability of winds exceeding 60 miles an hour, which is what you need for severe weather. There's pretty decent indication that that could happen just east of us, and by us, I'm referring to Crawford and Clark County. So it's going to be a little windy there for a minute, no doubt. But the probabilities of anything severe happening are very slim here over the next couple of hours. So that's why we're kind of winding down our coverage here. I know there's probably some folks down in this direction that are still watching, especially my friend Cody there, of course. I know he's in Robinson, so I want to make sure he knows what's going on here, of course, too. But this thing's probably wrapping up pretty quickly here, and we definitely can handle what is still to come here this afternoon. But essentially, we've kind of had a bonus round, I call it, of storms. We kind of talked about 2-round system today. Well, this is kind of all of a sudden turned into round 2. We're still expecting one later today, into the night. So this one coming to an end pretty quickly. But still, Robinson likely getting in on some pretty heavy rain, some stronger winds, around 50 miles an hour. But that will not last for too much longer. Hudsonville, a little bit of rain. Palestine eventually as well. Honey Creek. So we'll kind of watch that particular storm as it moves on through. Also some stuff kind of floating around in Effingham and now parts of Clay County. But again, if something's going to develop, it might be right around this region here. And that is likely going to just kind of head lazily to the east or maybe even to the southeast some. So probably not anything for us to worry about too much. But something to keep an eye on, of course, as it exits the area. So there's the radar in Robinson right now. As things continue that way. But hopefully before too long, we do not have too much to worry about. Aside from just what's to come tonight, which includes some heavy rain, some potentially strong winds. Not looking at too much in the way of a tornado threat, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, just not the highest thing on our chart here compared to some other stuff. But still something to keep in mind. I got someone in the chat here saying Robinson starting to feel some impacts within 5 minutes ago. So we are watching as that line moves on through. But once that thing gets out of Robinson, I think we are going to wrap up here. Because we do have to get some work taken care of before 4 o'clock, so that way we can stay on top of things here. And make sure you all know what is going to happen later on this evening and into tonight. Good thing is, once all this rain moves through today, the heat and humidity are going to take a bit of a break into the next couple of days, which is going to be real nice because today was not pleasant. We had heat index values close to 100, even above 100 in a few spots, and that was no fun. Of course, we're trading out that for some storms right now, which also isn't any fun, but at least we're getting rain, and we actually want the rain. I don't know of too many people that want 105 to 110 degree heat index values, but I do know a few people that like that. Just not the popular opinion, I wouldn't say, for a lot of us. So Robinson, probably getting yourself a nice storm right now, maybe some small hail in that, maybe nickel size, close to quarter size with some of that pink in there, but again, looking awfully high up in the radar. And it's kind of hard to tell exactly what's happening at the surface there. So we're watching this little cluster for some redevelopment. And that will carry on over into southeastern Illinois and southwestern Indiana before too long. The rest of us, though, I think It's pretty quiet. Raining in Springfield, maybe rain a little bit in Champaign, but that's all certainly manageable stuff for the time being. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I can really say here at the moment. Again, I just kind of want to make sure nothing crazy happens with this thing in Robinson before we get too far, or before we wrap things up here. Definitely don't want to leave anybody in the dark, but this threat is definitely not touching very many of us here. I'm just going to go ahead and look at if there's any hail in this thing. That's rather small. That's probably ½ inch at the most. Exactly, 0.6 of an inch. So not very big by any means. So threat, not really huge. There's a little bit of hail here and there in southeastern Jasper County. But look at that thing over there in Indiana. It's still dropping some hail. It's still probably golf ball size. But we'll just get one last check of your radar here, and then we'll probably wrap things up here on this live stream for now. Of course, we might be back later this evening as more storms develop. But as this stuff is getting on out of here, not too much need to stay on here for any longer. So with that being said, I'll bring myself up one last time here. And we will effectively wrap things up. Again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for your reports, as always. We have the 4 o'clock newscast coming up on WCIA 3 soon. So you'll catch up with us on the latest around then. Until then,